everybody. Good morning and welcome to the GTR show. Got a kind of a fun episode for you today. I hope wherever it is that you are and whatever it is that you were doing, whatever it is that you will be doing, will be all kinds of awesome. And I'm a little fired up today because we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, buying gear. My in-laws bought me this shirt, and they are kind of had this prophetic thing. The little voices in my head keep telling me, get more guitars. So I try and be obedient in those types of ways and things, but I've been spending a lot of time researching gear and looking for gear, and I thought this would be a perfect day to kind of share the things that I've learned, the things that I'm learning, the successes, the failures, and all of that. Noting that kind of at the end of the year, many of us kind of turn to our respective spouse and say, honey, or dude. I was thinking, with Christmas right around the bend, maybe there was a little something that could end up underneath the tree or the Hanukkah bush or the Kwanzaa, whatever that you would celebrate Kwanzaa with. But in any case, and then if Islam is your thing, I don't know, maybe the Mecca, whatever. All right, all inclusive. What do we do to get more gear in the quote-unquote holiday season? And more importantly, if we're buying it for ourselves, what do we want to be looking out for? And, I've kind of spent a lot of time over the past 6 months assembling a little bit of a guitarsenal for this next record that I'm working on. It's kind of this classic rock. And one of the things about buying used gear in particular is most of the time, there's something that's either missing or broken or somehow whatever. By the way, next week we're going to be talking about how to sell gear. But this week we're talking about the buying part of it. So I want to break things down into a couple of important things. Number one, if there is a spouse in the picture, start there. Why? Because not only this purchase, but the next one and the one after that, it works a lot better if you can go to your spouse and go, hey, you know what? I want to get this. Is there room in the budget? What are some of the options that we can do here? And then that way you can kind of plan it together. And I can promise you, it does a lot to keep the vibe going, because what you don't want to have is a new piece of gear show up and like, hey, honey, look at this. And they're like, would have been really nice if you'd included me in that decision. And I know if there are any significant others in the viewing today, they're going, yes. So in any case, but it works really well, and it makes life a lot more peaceful. And it keeps me from sleeping on the couch. All right, so that said, there are a number of different things that fuel a purchase right now. And I'm in the process of the area kind of behind the amp racks of redoing that. It is entirely possible. In fact, it's not entirely possible. It's completely possible that the next time you see us tune in here, that area behind me will be redesigned, because I may or may not continue shooting from here, but I'm going to be shooting a video for Eminence over there. And I'm changing things up, and I've got a bunch of gear that's coming, but some of which was impacted by this whole thing of supply chain. So that is to say, there are a number of different motivations that make us want to get gear, and they're kind of interrelated. So after the spouse thing, we want to kind of go, why are we buying it? And there's some important things that flow from that, which we'll get to in a moment. So for one, I need to put together the studio space for this video that I'm shooting for Eminence. I did not want to shoot in the same space with the same vibe. Shooting a video for Eminence that I shot for Celestion, it just was like, can't do it. So with that said, I all of a sudden went online and kind of started researching speaker stands. And by the time I was done, I had hit Reverb, Sweetwater, Guitar Center, Craigslist, and all the range of great to crappy to not available experiences I had. So the point being is, it was a business-driven decision, the why behind the decision. There was emotion because the need to get it done such that I can kind of do what I need to do for the Eminence folks. The need was high. The need was immediate. And the speaker stands that I would have gotten were not available at Sweetwater. They were not available basically anywhere. There was one set that was in like Pennsylvania, and the guy was like, local pickup only. And so the point being is that then I kind of had these range of experiences, some of which we're going to come back to in a minute. So then there are sometimes you go, well, what if I want to rebuy the instrument of my youth, or in this particular case, the PV Mace behind me? What about the amp of my youth? Well, that was kind of a sustained research thing. And I ultimately found it on Reverb and the cabinet on Craigslist. And then the foot switch, I found it. Let's see, is that going to set us up there? There we go. Foot switch, I to that in a little bit. And so the whole thing is that that's another reason. The other part of it is that, maybe you're making a particular record and you want to buy some idiomatically appropriate gear. Then there's the whole, you wake up one day and you decide you want to buy a Les Paul conversion, and you just kind of spend the next X period of time researching that, right? And then there's maybe you're collecting some piece of gear like fuzz faces or something. And I actually don't collect fuzz faces, but I was reaching for some piece of vintage stompy gear, and there was one. So the point being is that there are a number of reasons that we're going to be buying gear, okay? So the thing that I really want you to be really aware of is the emotional side of this thing that drives these transactions. Because generally speaking, the more emotional I am about a piece of gear, one, the more I'm potentially going to overpay, and two, the more I'm closer to making a bad decision. So in any case, I'm going to see if I can see people streaming in. Hello, good morning, Chris Alexander. There we go. I love that spirit. Come on, bring it on. Andreas? Andy Guitar, hello, good morning, my friend. Headstock Harem. Oh, awesome. So there we go. Love that. So what Headstock Harem is actually talking about, and okay, so let's hit the pause button for just a second. One of the most dangerous things we can do is get excited about a particular piece of gear and not start doing the background research and kind of know, all right, what goes into it. Now, the guitar that he's talking about, I'm 90% positive that when I saw, if you think about the track Eminence Front, Pete Townsend, who is not normally known for his lead guitar playing, is a phenomenal lead guitar player. Go back to the original Tommy, and you kind of go, oh, this guy has been able to play just wicked lead guitar for decades, right? He is Pete Townsend, but he's mainly known as a rhythm player. But he had this amazing tone. He was playing these Schecter's T-style guitars, which I presume, without doing my appropriate market research, is what he's talking about. But those are just great guitars. Enjoy that. All right, so here's the thing. Let's see, we're going over here. First of all, thanks everybody for tuning in. I am in multiple places, so let me make sure that I've got everybody. Oh, there we go. This is the one that I can't, it doesn't automatically feed into my stream on this side. So good morning, Shane. Great to see you. What a pleasure. Brian Sims, hello. Good on you, mate. Paul Richard, great to see you, my friend. Hold on a second. Gene Baker. The man. So Gene actually is, well, good morning. Gene is Gene Baker. He's one of the most highly revered, most amazing luthiers in the business, of course. Made my Telecaster, which is actually not on set at the moment, but one of my treasured instruments. I don't want to take too much of a left-hand turn, but Gene, welcome aboard. Great to see you. You did get the message that I left with your guy at Summer NAMM saying I would love to reconnect, so I would love to reconnect. Awesome. Tony Turner, what's going on? So Western Australia, I've got the Australian team here. Awesome. Rick Harrison, another phenomenal custom guitar builder. Good morning to you, Rick. Thanks for your text. All right, Shane Amory is listening as well. There we go. Okay. Michael Brock, what's up? Michael, I have time slotted for you today. So that's all I'm going to say about that for right now until I say more. All right, so here's the thing. As we're looking to buy an instrument, right? So this is a vintage guitar. So I'm actually going to go there. Because I am putting together this classic rock album. And I want to get an era-appropriate vibe. So as I started, thinking about what people were using, what they were playing, one day I just kind of went, boom, I want to get some sort of Les Paul that is a 50s era Les Paul, but has not is not pristine in the classic sense. There's a little headstock break. This guy has been retrofitted with 2 humbuckers. It turns out these are both PAF stickered PAFs, and so in terms of classically collectible Les Paul, this is what's referred to as a conversion. So because of that, the price was considerably lower than what you would pay. Now that said, if we're talking about, because a lot of the people that I interact with are a little bit older, which means at a certain point they're kind of going, I would like to have a vintage guitar. So here's one of the first places you can really, really get burned is stepping into the vintage guitar market and not having somebody to turn to be able to really advise you. So in addition to Bruce Adolph, publisher of Worship Musician Magazine, who's a dear friend, Joe Riggio, another custom builder, is another dear friend of mine. And Joe was really kind of my go-to guy because he has a lot of experience around these things. And I was just kind of, he was able to advise me on what was going to happen. And originally what I was looking for was a 50s gold top that underneath the top, many of these guitars were maple cap. And they just painted them gold and sent them out the door. It wasn't like they were hundreds of thousands of dollars then. So the idea is just like, you find one. I learned about this from another guitar collector buddy of mine that one day showed up at my rehearsal space with about 9 bursts, like real bursts. And it was, hey, Doug, what's going on? Another Australian. Good on you, mate. What's happening? Okay, this is so cool. All right, so the point being is that I reached out to somebody for what to look for. I could when I found an instrument, I could send him some photos such that he would know what was happening. Because the thing is I knew I was in a position to get burnt. So after we finally basically gave up on my finding the gold top that I could, dare I say it, sand the top, have it be a perfect center seam maple cap that had similar figuring on either side, and then we would, basically do a bursty thing on it. Then Joe was basically, I don't think you're going to find this guitar. So I gave up, except till the next morning I went out in Reverb and I searched Les Paul conversion, and there this guitar was. So this is the point about vintage guitars. Is that, first of all, I was pretty emotional about this purchase, which means I was willing to pay a little bit more than if I were going to buy a way huge fat sandwich, right? Like, this is readily available. This was kind of a bit of a unicorn. And so it has the original gold top finish. It has pretty much everything about this guitar except for the PAFs is original. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was either find a guitar that already had the original PAFs in it, or be able to take something like a 52 or a 53 and put PAFs in it. I was going to turn it into a conversion, which is slightly sacrilege, but at the same time, ultimately, this sort of a deal is really the iconic vibe. And I really love the wraparound thing. Any of you that have Blow by Blow, you get it. And if you don't, just take a look at Jeff Beck by Blow by Blow. The Oxblood Les Paul was an iconic instrument that Gibson ended up reissuing. So the point being is I went into this with an emotional point of view, which means that I knew I was ready to potentially make some mistakes. With an instrument that gets to be in the vintage range, one of the things that I kind of knew that I needed to do is if I was going to buy one, I was either going to buy it from a dealer that could send it to me and I could play it and return it. Or in this particular case, just so happened, I hopped onto Reverb bright and early, and there this guitar was. And it happened to be a local dealer. And so I was able to go meet with them and play the guitar, and I bought it. Meanwhile, I'm on the phone with both Bruce and Joe, just kind of going, hey, blah, 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 because they could see the pictures. They were able to kind of walk me through it. So the point being is if you're going to go the vintage route, unless you're dealing with a reputable dealer, where you can have the ability to return the guitar if you're not happy with it. And that doesn't mean, you keep ordering vintage guitars and have them sent. What it is, the idea is that, you're serious about this thing. The other thing is that the ability to go play it. So if this hadn't been local, I probably would have found some way of making a deposit and flown to where the guy was. Because I kind of needed to play it, right? When you get to this type of an instrument, it's just what you need to do. So the point being, that's one category. Then there's this other category of kind of going, buying some older instruments. So there is the PV Mace head. It's just got its own little vibe. So the funny thing is that I spent a bunch of time looking for a PV Mace head, and there were about 4 or 5 in the world that were on sale, and I know that from having traversed between Reverb and Craigslist and Guitar Center and all these different places. So I want to walk through a little bit of the process, not because it's just about me, but it's from the buying experience and a couple of other little pieces about this. One of the things that I can almost guarantee you, when you're going to buy some sort of vintagey piece of gear like the Randall behind the RG 100 ES and the matching cabinet, and that one's got the Celestians in it, is that there's always going to be something either slightly messed up or something missing. With the PV there, what was missing was this little doodad right about here. That little foot switch right there, it's kind of an important deal. So you can spend upwards of $100, or you can just be totally on Craigslist night and day, Reverb night and day, just monitoring that search. So I want to go through the buying process around kind of doing a little bit of pricing, so you kind of know what things are going for, so you can have an idea of what's involved, and then also kind of what to look for, and then also just as a little bit of a hint going into next week on selling gear, because between now and next week I will have put a bunch of stuff up. Not that I'm trying to get you to buy stuff. But the point being is that taking really good photos. So I'm actually going to jump over here, and I'll tell you kind of one of the things that's a kiss of death for me normally, except for the fact that I was in a slight state of desperation. Let's see if that tracked through the zoom. Okay, good. So if you take a look at that thing is flippin' filthy. Just totally filthy. I mean, it's just like the guy didn't bother cleaning up. And by the way, the other thing is when you see electrical tape, it's usually the kiss of death, because it's usually gotten incredibly sticky. Fortunately, I was able to pull that stuff off of there, but my little flip switch here, it actually works. And so the thing about that, as opposed to stuff like this, which was one of my other recent purchases, there was a pair of these for sale, one of which is great and the other is not quite as great. But I was able to get a smoking deal because I offered the seller on eBay. He had 2 of them, and I said, well, what if you bundle the 2 of them together? And I knew that there was a probability that one of them was not going to work. And one of them works, but is not quite as hot and not quite as full as the other one, but I may find the perfect positioning to be able to make it work. Ideally, I wanted, which is a stupid idea, of buying 2 of these vintage Sures and kind of have them being a match pair. I actually have a third one that actually I bought on Craigslist, which we're going to get back to in a moment, that actually doesn't work. And they take a special cable, and there's a whole bunch of whatever, but the point being is that I've been buying a lot of stuff from a lot of different places, and I would like to make sure that you don't make the mistakes that I make. Getting back to said foot switch, that puppy was filthy. So here's the deal. My expectations were relatively low, except for the fact that everywhere else I found a similar foot switch, it wasn't $39. So I'm like, you know what? If I can get a functional foot switch that works great and sounds great for said $39 plus some shipping, I'm all in. Works great. I cleaned it up. The amount of grime and disgustingness that came off of there was totally not good. Now, let's see if I'm going to do a little bit of my research process. So bear with me for a second. So, all right. So let's just say I am on Reverb here. Let's see. All right. Let's create a new window. And over here, and we're going to go PV. Got to spell it right. Mace. And let's see what comes up. All right. Ooh, a combo's come up. Don't tell the wife. Hold on, I was like, I need to move a couple of. Wouldn't that look really nice on top of all that other PV stuff over there? So the point being is that that's actually not a bad price. That looks like it's in great condition. All right, so here's the original series. That was actually what the guys in Skinnerd would have been playing. But it's, as I recall, is in Europe. No, it's in New York, local pickup only. For an amp that's in that condition, I'm not flying. Yeah, all of that. This one right here is the one that's in Stockholm. There you go. So it's one that was in basically a cabinet like this that somebody retrofitted, which basically means any collector's value that you would have on that, although that's really kind of cool looking, there's none, and it is very clean. So the point being, I ended up over on Craigslist, and then you head over here, musical instruments, and I'm sure the amp is still here, Pavey. And I always like to do a little bit of a broader search just to see what comes up, and sometimes people misspell stuff, but I can almost assure you that Mace is still going to be on here. There it is. All right. So kind of a bargain basement of $300, but you get what you pay for. And one of the things I did was I called my amp tech, who kind of works on everybody's amp in the Bay Area, and as soon as I see rust like that, especially around an amplifier, and where this amp is listed from is basically very close to the ocean. So I'm basically, this is kind of like one of those rusty ships you see that's out in harbor that you probably don't want to have anything to do with. So I ended up not going there. All right, so that said, let's head back over here for a quick second to this. Oh no, where did I hide that? Oh, now you're going to see everything that I'm looking at. All right, so getting back to, I think it's this one. All right, it's this here right here. All right, there we go. Let's head back to the main PV Mace page there. Price Guide is really a great vehicle that I don't think a lot of people know about in terms of reverb. So you're going to find, the first of all, on the right-hand side here, this is really good because it's separate from kind of the grid over here to the left. You really get a chance to qualify how frequently the sales are happening, what the condition is, and what you can kind of get for the money. That has really been an invaluable resource to me, and I can't say enough about utilizing that. All right, so that said, the head I got was $400. The cabinet I got, it's a 412. I'm really into these tall 412 cabinets. I got it for $200 in Los Angeles. And my dear wife was kind enough to accommodate. This is one of those funny stories. And let me make sure I'm not missing people on the chat here because I'm seeing chat move here. So the funny thing is I find this cabinet, and this guy's got a trio of vintage PV stuff. And I'm like, well, will you separate out the 412? And he's like, yeah. So we're driving, and all of a sudden we're like, it was actually Melissa said, it really looks like that scene at the end of 7. And for those of you who've seen it, the box arrives and we'll just leave it there. And sure enough, we Google, it's filmed right out where this last scene from 7 was shot. In any case, it's in pristine condition. And it sounds great, and so when I had it in the back of my van when I went to check out the head, and it was really a lot of fun. All right, there we go. Thank you, Alan. The funny thing is that Alan was like, hey, if you got any questions, check it out and give me a buzz, which I really appreciated. And so those came together pretty quickly, and I was like, I'm in. Awesome. Thanks, Headstock. Appreciated. Andrew JB, what's going on, my man? Good morning to you. Hello. Yeah, Rush never sleeps, and that's the thing is that once you got that stuff in there, it's generally bad news. Okay. Well, the DIN foot switch for the Marshall VS265 works. So here's one of the other things about this, and this is since we're here on the foot switch conversation, I will gleefully dig in. As I understand from limited research, the newer PVs moved, or at least some of the newer PVs moved to a 7 DIN foot switch. And I don't know what DIN stands for, but it's got little prongs. So this guy is a 6 DIN foot switch. And so I spent a bunch of time looking for one of these, and this probably came from a Mace or a Deuce. But the point being is they almost always over the decades get separated. And let's just see real quick. So let's go back over here. Hang on. I'm split between 2 screens. So I'm going to bet that as we look at all of these amps, none of them have the foot switch. So we're over here. Let's do this. Let's do this. Yeah, there's when you see no foot switch pictured, you kind of know. Let's go over to the other Mace. You're going to be listed on this page. Oh, hang on. Let me go back. It's going to be over here. There we go. One of the other things I like to do is I'm always over here on the right-hand side. You may not see it if you're on a phone, but there's most recent first, and that allows you to just instantly hit refresh if you keep a browser window open and see if there are any new offerings. So this old Mace, as I recall, that one doesn't have the foot switch pictured either. And I'm not going to take the time to walk through, hey, let's read through all the copy. But the challenge is, most of the time you're going to end up with an amp that doesn't have the original foot switch with it, which means then you're kind of like at a little bit of a loss of trying to find the foot switch. So you want to research and see what's there, research some of the aftermarket stuff. One guy whose brand I won't mention ended up getting a really bad rap because he was taking people's money and not sending them their foot switches. Then I found another replacement one that the guy happened to be on vacation, otherwise would have bought it, that his switches are $100. I got the original matching one for, $50, and it showed up last night. I plugged it in this morning, and it actually worked. I was about 50-50. He said, look, it's untested. But I was like, you know what? I've had a couple of PVs over the years. I thought it was going to be good, and it was. And I'm very happy about that. And with the foot switch, I could have had my amp tech make something that's there. All right, hang on a second. Now, let me get back over to Facebook here and make sure I'm not deserting people, which I always do on this particular Facebook feed, because I want to make sure I don't miss people's questions. There we go. Okay, that's good. All right. So, and thanks, Alan. Really appreciate that. Alan, hey, what's going on? Bent headstock. Okay, good. And a bent headstock. Okay, here we go. Andreas, once I was told that Gibson just didn't use fancy maple tops. They painted them gold to look special. So the early tops were just mahogany. Not sure about that. Okay, so yes and yes. So I have another... this is how you can tell... That doesn't sound right. The 57. Well, actually, how I could tell my 57 wasn't a 58 or a 59. So I have a 57, what was originally a gold top, that was stripped and kind of given almost an oxblood finish to it. And I was talking about that with one of the guys from, there's a bunch of vintage shops up in Seattle. I was talking about the guitar, and he said, oh, if it's a mahogany top and body, or I should say, it's basically a 1 or 2 piece mahogany guitar, I'd have to check. But the point being is then it's not a 58 or a 59. And it's a guitar that would have been exclusively used as a gold top. But in kind of, especially in some of the earlier years, they were like, well, they kind of almost always had a maple top. And this guitar, if you get inside there, the way you tell is you pull the pickup covers and you can kind of begin to see, it had a maple top. And so, but I'm... This finish is so kind of flipping awesome that there's no way in the world I'm taking it off. And the other thing is that the concept of a center seam, if you look at the most beautiful bursts, they've got a center seam, and quite often they're either very close or not, where the two sides, the left and the right, and then luthiers have a tendency to like do the center seam thing. But the point being, is a guitar that wasn't necessarily intended to be bursty, they wouldn't have had any reason to make the two sides match. But every so often you find them. But this is the whole thing about this, is that then you end up in this other area of the market where there are people that will do arranging. The new thing that people are doing is using Les Paul Juniors and putting a maple cap on them, which is really, Les Paul Junior is actually a great guitar, but it is a different instrument, in my opinion, than these. It was made for a different group of people. My guess is that they use the best woods for, kind of the Les Paul standards and customs, and then they use, the leftovers for juniors. That's only opinion, but the point being is it's kind of like, if you think about the difference between Gibsons and Epiphones, who's going to get the best wood, right? And the juniors were never really intended to be top of the line, which is why they were called a junior. Great sounding guitars, think of Leslie West, right? All right, good. Don't want to digress too far on that thing. So, boom. Yes, the generational side. What's going on, Adam? How you doing? So that is it's a mace, and the thing about this amp, it's pretty funny. The guy that was selling it was a pastor at a church. So I brought the cabinet up, and I warned him in advance. I said it's highly probable that there's never been the kind of volume you're about to experience in the sanctuary. It was so loud, it was awesome, and so I'm a huge Skynyrd fan. When I was about yay high, coming up, One More from the Road was one of the albums that I went, someday I want to do something like that. And so coming back to actually, I'm going to be seeing Skynyrd on November 13th in North Carolina. And if my luck holds out, there's a guy who plays keyboards in Skynyrd named Peter Keys, and he is hopefully going to be playing on my forthcoming album, which makes me pretty darn excited. He is the brother of a woman that I played in a band with called Einstone for many. Actually, that version of the band was together a little bit less than a year, but Stephanie, who I loved dearly, passed away, and I found that out as I was kind of messaging back and forth with Peter, which was pretty much heartbreaking. Quick left turn. It's really strange when I've never lost a bandmate before, and so there's lots of layers to the feeling around all of this, which is, in any case, Stephanie Keys, sending it up. Okay, yeah, I cried like a baby. Bruce Adolph, what do you got for us? I wouldn't, morning all, I couldn't find the stream for quite a while, and then I checked back and you were on. Here I am. Bobby Valdez, what you got for us? Okay, so this is the other thing. Thank you. Once you start looking to buy these old heads and cabinets, there's a series of left turns. And I've gotten a little bit deeper in the chat, so let me back up a step here. As we're doing our research, once we've decided recapping: 1, include your spouse. 2, what type of purchase are you making? Is it kind of like, I need guitar strings, not a lot of emotion around that. There is some research. One of the things I like to do is I generally like to put, if I like the strings that came on an instrument, I generally go to the Sweetwater website and I can find what strings it came with quite often. Fender's also really good about putting what strings came originally on the guitar because there's a lot of strings in the market. And quite often, I can't say enough about how different a guitar will sound with not only a new set of strings, but a different set of strings. In any case, is it an emotion like I want to rebuy the guitar that I had in my youth? The emotion around those different types of purchases is going to allow you to make either really logical, I'm going to take my time, I'm going to get the price I want, get it, from a quality reseller, versus like, I'm going to potentially do business with somebody that I wouldn't normally do business with. And you go into that knowing that it's super important. And then comes into this thing of, right, well, if you're going to spend upwards of $200, you want to spend that $200 one time, which means doing that market research. As we get in these cabinets, this is where it gets very, very, very interesting for those of us that are gear geeks. So the PV guy, there were a number of different speakers that PV had in that era. Not that many, actually. So there were the PV Black Widows, I think, and I'm pretty sure that's what's in there. And so then there was also, I think, a CTS maybe speaker. At this point, I was so excited about getting this cabinet that I knew I could swap out the speakers. I got it for $200. And the thing is that it actually has the original speakers in it that I think the dust caps have actually, over the years, I think they were the shiny ones, and I think they've just kind of oxidized a little bit. So as you look in there, in fact, I'm positive of it. So I was like, okay, and which I think makes them Black Widows. Now, let's talk about Randallville. For those of us that are Dimebag Darrell fanatics, I've now got 3 RG100 heads, and I've got 3 or 4 of the cabinets. So basically, I'm prepping to recreate the Dimebag rig, which has been a heck of a lot of fun. But there were two different sets of speakers that you get in the Randall Cabinets. And I've got, but also there's a V4 head that is at my amp techs right now, but that'll filter in the conversation because the 412 cabinet for that. There we go. There we go. Thank you. CTS and Eminence, then Spiders and Spiders, then back to Eminence. Thank you very much, my friend. So at some point, there we go. Hold on, there's more. Lately selections. Thank you. So the thing is that there are people that, if we're fortunate enough, are in our immediate circle that we can go, hey, Alan, tell me about this. And Alan actually very kindly, I ended up kind of going, look, I'm going to get the VT series mace. I knew that. It's a little bit higher gain, as I understand, than the original mace that I showed you before. And there we go. Hang on, it's still queued up over there. Hang on, this little big daddy right here, because I really at some point would love to have one of the original maces. There we go. And the way you can tell that one from the one behind me is it doesn't have any of the blue knobs. And that that little amp there that you were looking at, that thing has been through some business, right? So the point being is that this one's got the blue knobs, pretty much and actually it doesn't have the silver knobs. Actually, for those of us that actually know better. What's going on, John? How you doing? Great to see you. Pleasure. Thanks for dropping in. All right. So on the Randall side of things, there were basically the Randall cabinets came with either the Jaguars, which were made by Eminence, and then they also had a Celestian. So herein we get into some of the details of kind of the drama of buying speakers and cabinets from different locations, because this is relevant, because this is a big part of what I wanted to talk about. Hang on just one second. Hey, Bobby, what's going on here? Interesting, not a biggie, but there's a delay between the audio feed and the video. The audio is behind visual just a wee bit, something different. Thanks, Bobby. Let's see, you are coming in from Facebook. Of all the things I could say about Facebook, I can say it's free and you get what you pay for. My apologies, Bobby. It's real. Oh, it's okay now. Yeah, it's really annoying when the sync is off. Chris Alexander. That's a great question. It is a solid state preamp and tube power amp. It actually has six L6s. My understanding was the Skinner guys were using Marshalls and they were having some problems with the Marshalls breaking down. And at the same time, PV wanted to really kind of put their elbow in Fender's side. So it's like a combination of a high gain Marshall with a master volume and two channels. And because of the 6L6s, they were kind of giving the folks at Fender with the twin reverb, which at that point was the get out of my way, I'm the loudest amp on stage. This has 6L6s. It is inconceivably loud. And I'm playing it real quiet here. And I'm going to come back to the Randalls in just a moment, but Tom has a long thing, so let me grab that. Has a long post, so let me go ahead and bring that into the feed. Mr. Doug, I feel like I got very lucky in having the ability to buy and then access some wonderful vintage amps. Ooh, in 2017 to 20... Wait, hold on, come back here. You're not going to get away with that quickly. 2017, and conflicts which sadly players getting to storage and where they're no longer a fit for declining years. Now the pandemic has blown up prices and product selling is much less local unless you can get in deep. Hold on a second. There we go. Now the pandemic has blown up prices and product selling is much less local unless you can get deep in the culture, where obviously I am. Actually, so the funny thing is, it depends on what it is you're buying as well. And I'm not, sometimes here's the thing. I always like to respond honestly, but not, I'm not that guy. So yes and no. Here. Okay, hang on. All right, great point. I'm going to take the bait because I can see the I've got a monitor where I can see myself behind me, or something like that. Craig Parker, what's going on, my man? Hello, hello. So the thing about this gear is it depends on what you're looking for, and then there's reality. So one of my buying trips in Los Angeles, I kind of went bonkers. So there we go. So let's go over here and let's do this. And I'm going to walk you through the madness that is known as the Deluxe Memory Man. These things have absolutely gone through the roof. And let's not even talk about clones. And then you kind of go, or have they? So as we get down here, there are a couple of things that start to happen. First of all, what I'm always looking for, because this right here is, if you will, my buying Bible. This kind of allows me to kind of look at what's happening in the marketplace. It allows me to look at the frequency in that left-hand column, allows me to look at the condition and the sold price. So on the 21st, $600. On the 20th, $1,100. On the 18th, $550. So there are a couple of things about this. In theory, these are only, as it says across the top here, the 1990s Deluxe Memory Man. As it turns out, you'll see some of the ones that are from the early 2000s as well. As a matter of fact, you can see right there, right? So the point being is that I'm cool with that. But there is a huge amount of variation in price. But what you really want to look for is 1021, 1020, 1018, 1017, 1015. This is a hot market, right? They're selling a lot of them. Now let's actually go over and let's see the reality about the Klon. All right. So let's just let's take a look at. I don't know. I've been gently kicking the tires on the idea of a silver Klon. All right, so let's go over to the price guide and see what's really happening. All right, one sold thus far in all of October. They sold 4 of them. Now, this person paid $6,900. What we also don't know about this guide is, does it include horsey, non-horsey? Because in theory, we are in here looking at non-horsey centaurs, right? So we're just going to presume they got it right, but sometimes they don't. So the point being is that market is not overly hot, and I'm looking at this $3,800 one, and and kind of going, the $3,400 one, and then the other thing and this is super, 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 super important for any of you that are. If I'm looking for the one that I'm going to potentially buy, I'm going to look for the one that, first of all, has a reasonable price. And I don't know, I'm just going to go over to Japan. With somebody with 5 stars from Japan, I've never actually bought anything from Japan, but if they got 5 stars from Japan, I'm remotely interested. 5 stars and 22, auctions. The first thing I'm going to do is go over and take a look at, where is he? Come on, how do I get, there we go. I'm going to see what other items he's got listed, right? Or she. But 2 different Klons. Okay, there's enough cool stuff in here that I'm like, okay, this person is legit. I'm going to go back over here. Then what I want to see is and this is really, 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 really important, product specs. This is everything you want to know about this listing. Listed 23 days ago. Okay, because if that had been listed, I don't know, let's go back over here and look at maybe the other one that I might be checking out. Like, I don't know, let's just talk about Mr. Silver here. All right, so when did Mr. Silver list this thing? 6 days ago. All right, yeah, me and Mr. Silver, we're not doing business together. Let's check out, 46 from France. Boy, there's a lot of stuff from across the globe here. I don't know, I'll check out 46 from France. So what I'm looking for is how long France here, a day ago. Wow, okay. So there's just a ton of new Klon listings here. That's where, when I see a bunch of new listings, I generally am going to try and look for somebody that has had it on the market for a while, and I'm going to kind of go, what are you willing to take for this thing, right? And I try and be fair and negotiate reasonably. Heading back to over here. Okay. So hang on just 1 second. There we go. Good, good, good. Okay. Yeah, so Chris Alexander, your point is right on target. So the whole thing is that by seeing how long something's been listed for, I get a feel for it. First of all, I don't buy anything on Reverb without looking at the price guide, looking at how long it's been listed, and then trying to figure out what my reasonable offer is going to be for that person. If they've been sitting on that piece of gear, especially if their whole business model is like, I find it on Craigslist, I list it on Reverb. Find it they want turnover. So if you can put cash in their pocket that is a high enough profit on what they paid for it, they'll usually say yes. I've only had one guy be exceptionally rude, and it was on a guitar that I really wanted. When I went to test the Ampeg V4, the guy had like a 70s double cut Les Paul special. Never played one. Had a T-top and a P90, and I flipped. I was like, wow, never would have thought about that guitar. There was a guy who happened to have one. It'd been on the market for like 6 months. I'm like, are you at all negotiable? I am never negotiable. I'd rather sit on the guitar, forever than sell it. I mean, just like the rudest SOB I think I've ever encountered. So I'm like, okay. And I said, I just replied, because you never know when you're gonna meet somebody. I was just like, I'm glad business is that good. Best wishes, boom. But I was like, jerk. Oh, Eric Martin Bureau, perfect. We're now gonna talk about the Randalls. Okay, so Eric, like myself, is a dime bag fanatic. So the RG100 behind me was one of my Craigslist finds. So let's talk about buying on Craigslist for a quick second. And let me get over to the right place here real quick. And let's do this and let's do this. So let's just say I want to, good, we're queued up to the right place. I want to do a little bit of Randall buying on my local Craigslist. First of all, for those of you that've never Craiglisted, just go to Craigslist. Hold on just a second. Let's just do this. Craigslist.org. On the right-hand side, you choose your area. So for me, that is, if I can actually read English. Come on, where'd SF Bay area go? Hello? How is it that you just disappeared off my list? All right, well, just imagine that it hadn't disappeared off my list, and I'm on SF Bay area. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down over here under for sale and check musical instruments. And then you could spend a lot of time scrolling. And honestly, I pretty much every day go through here and just see what's new. But the thing is that if I want to actually look for Randall, I can search for Randall. I can see everything that's on there. And it also has a tendency to pull some stuff in from local markets. But one of the things that I also know in my various ramblings, when I go down to Los Angeles, I want to see what's going on in the Randall department in Los Angeles, so I can do that. And that's how I found, well, there you go. As I recall, this is the 212. This is what's really scary, is after a while you begin to know the amps from Reverb and Craigslist, and you know what's cross-listed. As I recall, yeah, there we go. That's really scary. I was like, yeah, this is the one with the 212. And I also would have remembered this is the RG80 with the 212 as opposed to the 412 cabinet. But the point being is that's really, really, really clean and actually a really good price. Now, the 85 speakers. So I won't go too far down the rabbit trail. Jay Kirkland, what's going on, man? Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Jay, you see, it's a tall 412 cabinet. It's a 412F, I think is, or it's an F412, and I flip and love that. And then the mace, and I am maced up. What's going on, Poo Ninja? All right. Thank you. Hang on a second. I got to come back. I missed one really important thing. 5 million windows simultaneously. Yes. Forgot to mention that. Poo Ninja, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So when we're over here on... Oh my word, I'm popular. When I'm over here on Reverb, let's actually take a look at one of the other pieces I'm actively looking at. So we're going to go to ST9. Okay, I have been in the market, and there are non-emotional purchases. I basically own every tube screamer ever made. So the ST9 is a very unique pedal. Oh, this guy's still got it mislisted. All right. Basically, it's a pedal that was only released in France. And so the deal with the ST9 is it basically, let's see, which one of these is going to give me the shot of the guts? What's really cool about these bad boys? Yeah, this is the guy that mislisted his pedal, and I sent him a message. He's got a TS9 listed as an ST9, and with all that business there, you know it's not finished. In any case, it's nice to be a good member of the community. So I think this one may have the gut shots. No. What basically, for those of us that geek out on this stuff, Jacques has been in... I'm surprised he didn't show that. Jacques is one of the guys that's been in the Tube Screamer game for a long time. All right, so the short version is this. Oh, this guy in the States is selling his... So, all right, so this guy... Normally, Eastern Europe, I hate to say it, I'm overly cautious. And he's in Serbia there, and he has 28 listings, and then as you kind of get in and take a look at his shop, he's got a fairly decent range of vintage stuff. So I have a fairly high comfort level that this guy, he's legit. And I was like, all right, okay. So I sent him an offer because, well, this is perfect. So hold on, let me get back over here. There are a couple of things about this that make this the perfect pedal for me. All right, so we get down here. He's got, if he only had one or two listings or sales, I never would buy from him. But then I get down here and I look at the review the specs. 4 years ago, I'm like, this is a pedal that I think I can make this guy an offer of $400 on, and he just might sell it. Because when we get back over to the main page here and we start taking a look at the price guide, the last one of these that sold was in July. The one before that was in June, and then May. There's not an awful lot of sales going on here. So I'm like, I can get in on this pedal. And I think, after having this thing sitting around for 4 years, this guy just might want to get out of this pedal. Now, as it turns out, he didn't, but we had a very nice exchange. And I was just like, hey, if at some point you want to get out of the pedal, let me know. So at some point, I'm going to tickle that thread again. But if he'd only had one or two listings, I never would have reached out to him. So thank you very much for that. Right on the money. I wouldn't say I'm a tube... Maybe I am. Tube Screamer King and Girl. You know what? I will gleefully receive that. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Good. That's the cabinet. Oh, Eric, you've got the 212 cabinet with that selection. All right. So here's the thing on the dime bag thing. So one of the, and this is I have to admit this. I love playing. I just absolutely love it. But I must admit, there's a part of me that enjoys the conquest and the hunt and the capture and the arrival of new gear. I have to say it is almost as exciting as the gear and playing through it itself. I just have to admit it. So with that said, I love the research. And this is why, hopefully today will be helpful for some of you as you go to do this. So as I kind of got into the Randall thing, I basically have bought the entire dime bag rig, as well as looking at some photos from, I believe, one of the Japan tours where he had a particular TC delay that had made its way into it wasn't a Pantera rig at that point. It was the next band, who, for whatever name, is completely, reasons gone out of my brain. You guys know who I mean. In any case, generally speaking, this is per one of the interviews that I read, Dime was saying, look, if I needed delay, they would add it to the board. But the idea was to be able to recreate the sounds of my favorite Dimage. So I have 3 of the heads now, 3 or 4 of the cabinets. I've got the rack mount preamp, and then I've also got one of the power amps that was in a rig that I had from back. Thank you, Damage Plan. Holy cow. So in Damage Plan, thank you. Yes, Damage Olan and Damage Plan. Both of them. So thank you very much, Ben. So the thing is that so it's a TC, whatever the heck it is. So I bought it for like $100. But this is where the emotion side of this thing comes in, is that these Randall amps themselves come in waves. Whenever you're looking for something, frequently it's not there. And this is where the emotion gets really high for 2 key reasons. One, you respond to the scarcity, which means you're faster on the draw than you would be if there were 2 or 3 of them there, which can get you into trouble. The other part of it is that you frequently won't have done all the research, and you can end up buying the thing that you weren't necessarily looking to get. So in this particular case, I already had the power amp, so I was like, buying the stereo preamp, it's cool. I had a little bit of budget for it, and I went for it. And, it means I've got more options of ways that I can do it. And also, as I begin to think about, ultimately, all of the stuff I'm going to be capturing / profiling it, and it's going to be available for purchase. So that's kind of one of the end games. So, which for me is very excited. So this is the great thing about the whole research thing. So basically, it's the MXR flanger doubler. I looked for a month and finally found one. I think I ended up getting it on eBay. Got the flanger doubler. The one that was really rare was the parametric EQ, the Furman parametric EQ. Those are just, until you've bought one and then another one pops up and you're like, really? But that I waited a good month and a half, 2 months for one to even show up. And I was rabid. I had all the Craigslist, United States Cross. I was watching Reverb. Now, one of the other resources that a lot of people, anxiety by are the worst. They absolutely are, because the thing is that you're like, well, what if somebody nabs it before me? So the same thing with that PV foot switch. The moment I saw it come up, thank you, PQ3, thank you. There's a PQ2 and the PQ3s, and they both will get the job done. Ironically, and you guys are gonna love this, Joe Satriani used one in the Squares, and he sold me his PQ2, which is the green front one, and I used it for a while, and then I flipped it. I'm like, I'm sitting here going, I'm about to pay, and I would have paid like $75 for Joe Satriani's, which at one point, I don't even, the worst part is there's a piece of gear I remember having, but I have no recollection of selling it, which is very strange. But can you imagine, like, oh, it's Joe Satriani's PQ2. I'm just like, rebuying gear. So there we were. So, and yes, they are, and so there's that, there's the MXR, then there's the, I can't believe I'm doing this, the guitar silencer. It's basically, I think, what Rocktron had before they officially branded everything Hush. So I'm buying this old Rocktron Hush pedal or rack unit because it's the right gear. So I now have all the components, right? Including the guitar. It's over there. And, so I did a little bit of research, and the guitar is one of the best guitars I've ever played. It's, for that style in particular, it flipping roars. So this particular amp and cabinet, it was, well, honestly, he was asking $1,200. I think I gave him $11. And it is in pristine condition. But here again, there's always some little twist. So it didn't have the foot switch. His dad was the original owner, but the other thing that this kid did, there's a little bit of spillage on the front of the grill, so I'm going to need to take the grills. You kind of get a screwdriver in there, you can pop them off. I'll be able to clean most of that off. But they used some sort of cleaner on the outside of the Tolex that basically makes it so the head wants to slide off the top of the amp. I could have killed this kid. It made the amp clean, but basically it's so slick and it comes off on your hand. So I'm sure somebody here has some good advice on what's good to clean stuff up so that you can get it clean but not gross. All right, the speakers. So there were the Jaguar speakers, which were manufactured by Eminence, and then there were also the Celestians. And I now have forgotten the model Celestian. It's a different Celestian. I think it's the 70 watt, but it's the 8 ohms, G12 something 70. And so the point being is that this is where you deal with, I'm just going to go there, and because it was the first of a couple really just lame transactions on Craigslist. It's really kind of unfair to use the word bottom feeder, but if there was a word that always comes to mind of a certain group of people on Craigslist, bottom feeder is absolutely it. They kind of live on the feces that other fish spill out, as well as the algae on the bottom of the ocean. And I had a quad of the 70s, 8 ohms, guy pulled out of a cabinet. We had gone back and forth for 3 days. I'm on my way to my rehearsal space. I'll meet you there. I message him, and in between the time he gets to the rehearsal space and our, setting up the time to meet, like we're talking about a period of an hour. Oh, some guy in the hallway saw him and bought him. It's a first come, first serve thing. I was like, if I ever meet you, I'm putting my truss rod down your throat. I was just like, filter. Unimpressed. So, there we go. Thank you. What do we got here? Emerald, cockpit spray for cars would do the trick. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. It's just slick as all get out. The ADA vintage flangers, yes, that's probably another one that I should have bought. And the funny thing is, also on the lists, thank you for asking, is the MP1 MIDI preamp, right? And then when you're going to go there, and I can't see myself doing it, but they had these really interesting 212 tall cabinets that you put side by side, and with their power amp, you ended up with a stereo, rig, and that was Kirk Hammett's rig for a long time, or at least for a period of time. And there were a bunch of players that got amazing sound. I think Nuno played the MP1 for a minute. Tom, what's going on? How you doing, my friend? Great to see you. What a pleasure. Hello, hello, hello. So, all right. So the thing is with these types of rigs, especially when you're going, hey, how do you tell what Dime was actually using? You actually don't necessarily know. Some folks said he was only using the Jaguar. Some folks said he used the Celestians. Especially in Damage Plan, I had heard that he'd only moved to the Celestians. And that was a different amp at that point anyway. But the thing is so I've kind of gotten a combination of the two of them. The cabinets are really hard to find with the original speakers. And this is where Guitar Center actually has become arguably my best resource for speakers. And I want to tell you why. If you're in the market for speaker cabinets, your best deal on shipping is Guitar Center. Oh, there we go. Tom Martini, what's going on? The ADA MP1 was a beast. I'm sorry I got rid of mine. Paul Gilbert's tone was awesome on it. Thank you, Paul Gilbert, as well. There were a ton, because it had all these great tones in there. So that's going to be on the list as well. Yeah. Dare I say the list never ends. Don't tell the wife. Awesome. Great to see you, Tom. So the thing is that what I'm going to do with the dime bag rig is that I'm going to probably set up, and it's not the way he set it up, but it's going to allow me to get the most brutal version of it. It's probably going to be in some wet, dry, wet version of it. That is to say, the center head will be, there we go, thank you. There we go, there we go, yeah. Something like that. What's going on, Stephen? How you doing? Great to see you. Good morning. Thanks for tuning in. Vanderzo. If I say it fast enough, I might be close. Good morning to you. So the idea is the center one will be dry, and then I'll take the loop out of that to send out to the MXR, so I can run that kind of in stereo on the two outside amplifiers, and I can run the delay over there, so you just never lose the sound of the direct amp, because I want to pay homage. Dime said, again, that when he was using the RGs, he never actually ran a delay off of it. So it means I'm not losing the punch of that one, but I can then control with the MXR and and also there's the little 6-band MXR EQ, which I also got thanks to my buddy Bruce Adolph. He actually, I sent him on a mission for one of the 412 cabinets. So here's the challenge of buying old 412 cabinets. And for those of us that buy Marshall cabinets or Randalls or Peavy's, there's always a possibility that speakers have been switched out. And this is one of the reasons why, doing your research, knowing which one you want to get, making sure that that's actually in there, having them take some photos. Somebody made a comment about double checking the photos, and that's one of the things is that I never, here's the thing is that sometimes people don't know what they've got, and sometimes they know what they've got and they misrepresent it. You just have to kind of know that people are not always honest when it comes to things that involve money. It just happens. So the point being is that when it comes to looking for these particular things, knowing again which speakers you're looking for. So that gets us to the V4 head that I've got, and just ridiculous amplifier. It was apparently the amp. Yeah, no, we went through all sorts of stuff to get that 412 cabinet down here. Thank you again, Bruce. But it was literally an RG. And I flipped the letters around, but basically it was a 412 JT or a JT 412. Basically, what that is Randallese for a 412 with Jaguars, and it was a top cabinet. And one of the speakers has got a hole in it. The front baffle's got a little bit of a crack, but it doesn't seem to be moving anywhere. Steve Serena, hello, my friend. Good morning to you. Hello, hello. A former bandmate of mine. Great to see you. Good morning to you. Say hi to the fam, please. I still have 2 MPs since '89 I don't use anymore. We'll have to continue this conversation offline. Here's the thing: is like I will make this thought to you is that I really want to be able to profile those and put them in some sort of profile pack that I'm going to put together. So if you and I can work out some sort of little negotiation where you make a percentage on the back end and we're good on that, and that might be a way for you to get a little bit of cash coming off of those on the back end. That would be cool. So Jay, you and I will be in conversation about that potentially. Awesome. Thanks, Steve. All right. So the speaker side of it, Guitar Center, one of the things that they do is they ship cabinets either to store or to home, and you will swallow the shipping if there's if you don't want to keep it or there's a problem. But I'm literally having a oversized. It's a V2 412 cabinet. It's basically like that. So these cabinets that manufacturers like PV and Ampeg made at the time in the 70s that you could use for either guitar or for bass. Because at that point, if you think about these vintage Marshall amps, one of Joe's kind of favorite amps that he played back in the Squares day was a super bass. So the concept of bass cabinet, and there were the 55 hertz pulsonic cone Celestians that are arguably the most desirable ones versus the 75 hertz ones. So that's what's in my super vintage 1967 Marshall cabinet. What do they call that girl stuff? Pinstripe. And that was really an important part of that purchase. When I bought that cabinet, I was like, I'm going to capture this cabinet. I'm going to profile this cabinet. I want it to be all the things that I wanted it to be. Again, that's some research. There's a website, by the way, called Bygone. Hold on. Let me actually do us all a favor. Bygone Tones. Bygone Tones. There we go. And it kind of auto-populated. So what they've got, and it's so incredibly cool. At some point, I'm going to have to get this guy on the show because this guy is a genius. There we go. Let's bring that up. That should be it. So basically Celestian T numbers. So he's got all this stuff so you can make sure you're getting the speaker that you want. He's got all these great descriptions so you know for a fact the speaker that you're getting with your cabinet either was or was not the right speaker for the cabinet originally. And it's highly probable. Actually, I know for a fact the quad of speakers that are in my vintage Marshall cabinet, they're not the original speakers that would have come in there because of the date codes. Because just the cabinet is a little bit older. I should say there's about a year offset, and at that point, I'm pretty sure that it's within about 51% probability that the speakers weren't original to the cabinet. I don't care. The cabinet's in really nice condition, and the speakers are the speakers that I wanted. But that website, Bygone Tones, is where there is more information on the speakers and the cabinets that allowed me to really kind of go, okay, this is what it is. So I spent a bunch of time doing my research before I went in. So I said, now, one of the searches that I regularly check is Marshall, because, I'm passionate about this stuff. There's a certain amount of just like staying in the thick of things, right? Same with the Randall. I'm not going to buy any more Randalls anytime soon, but I still want to see what's going on out there. And, I didn't really need a third head and cabinet, but they were so clean, and I didn't have a cabinet that had the Celestion speakers in it. So I was like, all right, I'm just buying it. And the price was for what it is. I'll be able to flip it if I ever wanted to get rid of it. It's so clean. It was what I understand, the guy bought it at Guitar Center or someplace, and he had it in his house, and his son sold it. All right. Good. Oh, wait. Sheffield's. Oh, right. That was the Steve Morse era when Steve Morse went from the V4s to the so Sheffield's, as I recall, were Peavy's take Sheffield, England on Celestians, where the original Sheffields knew serious tone and can handle everything. Yeah, those are supposed to be great. And again, it's their take on, hey, the irony would be is if, Eminence made the Sheffields, which, and in case you didn't know, Eminence has made a huge range of, speakers that come loaded in various, different cabinets. All right, so the V4 thing. So I read an interview with Joe Perry, and again, for many of us, we're chasing the tone or the rig of some era or some player that inspired us. So that, again, gets down to the research of it. I saw a V4 head come up for sale on Craigslist locally. And I was like, And I remember when, the Dixie Dregs, before the Dixie Dregs became the Dregs, and in the Dregs era as well, Steve Morse was using a V4, and it was my favorite era of his tone. I absolutely love Steve Morse's sound in that era. To me, my personal favorite Steve Morse's tone. Just those amps sounded ridiculous. Now, interestingly enough, he used them with Fender cabinets, which probably had Eminence speakers, which probably would have been relatively synonymous with the speakers that would have come in the Ampeg cabinets anyway. But I kind of am big on, like, if I can find the head, I want to find the cabinet. And I love these oversized cabinets. So in my research around, once the head was on its own, I went and tested it, and I thought it was going to be good. Apparently, Rocks was recorded with it. I'm positive that it's either Rocks or Toys in the Attic. Pretty sure it was Rocks. And I remember reading an interview with Joe Perry where they asked him, what did you use on that album? It was like, the studio had some V4s that he thought they'd either had customized, but he said, I love those amps. And then, Steve Morse, and then, Stones, and just a bunch of people use those amps. Amazing. I went and plugged in, again, earlier I talked about that guy's double cut Les Paul special that had the T-top in the bridge. I flippin' lost my mind with that guitar. That guitar and the amp, but the amp was just ridiculous. All sorts of different settings with the little push buttons on these little flip switches on the top, but the tone was unreal. Like $400 later, I'm out the door. But I was like, I want to buy the matching cabinet so I can reproduce the sound of what that amp was intended to do. If I want to mix and match cabinets after the fact, that's great. So I went on this little bit of research thing. And this is where it's actually, again, the research thing takes an interesting and fun turn. Is that I reached out on the gear page because I thought, there's a period of time I spent a lot of time there. Some of the folks can be a little pontificorious. That is to say, sometimes they like to get up on their soapbox. But generally speaking, most of the people are really, really cool. And I put up this post. I'm like, hey, got a V4 head. Trying to figure out, first of all, I've heard a couple of different things. There were CTS, there were Eminence, and there were Altex that came loaded in these. I heard that the Altex could be bright, and I heard the CTS had a tendency to bottom out. So that is to say, I came into the conversation having done some research and saying, this is what I've heard. And, within a day, there were like 10 responses from different people kindly offering insights and their take on that. And I was like, how cool is that? So today, at some point, my cabinet is showing up. So I went through a bunch of research. And, this is one of those things about sometimes you don't pull the trigger and then the next day that other thing shows up. So I just happened to Guitar Center. Let's do this. Let's do this. All right, so we're over here. So let's go over to Guitar Center. All right, and we're going to go over to Vintage, and we're going to go over to Amps and Effects, and we're going to go over to Ampeg. And now what we've got is, oh, wait. Oh, hold on. Let's try that again. For some reason, it didn't want to remember that from there. All right, so VT40. There we go. Now we're into the good stuff. Sorry, I've got a couple of panes that are overlapped here. All right, so I don't want the SVT, but this is 412, and it's actually, this one's bundled with a head. I couldn't get them to separate them out. And then this is another one that they wouldn't separate out from me. But this is where I found my Ampeg 412. That's where I found my Ampeg tall cabinet that's on its way to me today. There we go. So this is what they look like. And this guy's in Chicago. I know all these cabinets. This guy's in Chicago, local pickup only. But what's so cool about it, it's a tall cabinet. It's got the little rolly guy. But it's just real. So it looks a lot like an SVT cabinet, but it's not. Now, the thing about these cabinets, and I wonder if I can find the picture of this. I'll leave that up for a second while I do a little bit of hard drive search here real quick. It's the funniest thing about the back of this cabinet. I've had something like this before. I had a Flying V. That's what had it like this. It's just so... All right, hold on. Sorry to keep you on the back of the cabinet there. There we go. DD gear. Almost there. Gear. There we go. Ampeg. Is it going to come up? No, it's not. Oh, I see. It's because... Oh... It's that web P. It's I could have done a grab of it. Got it. All right. All right. Sorry, I'm back. Almost. In any case, what it is that there were a couple of different eras of those V4 heads and the V4 and or V2 cabinets where, like the old Vox stuff, they actually used something that really resembled an XLR jack. And so my guess is somebody swapped it out with the traditional 1/4 inch, but literally the connection point is a 1/4 inch cable coming out of the back of the cabinet. So I'll be having to put a plate like you saw on this guy. I'm almost positive this little back plate you can see there is an aftermarket plate that they put on there, replacing the XLR jack. So the point being is that, you know, some of the people that chimed in on that gear page thread were like, hey, be conscious, you know, does the amp have the XLR jack? Because you potentially want to get a cabinet that does. My amp is actually a little bit after that period. But the point being is that this is where, if you don't have an immediate circle of people to turn to, and you do a little bit of research, so and that includes actually kind of searching on someplace like the gear page. Sometimes, and it's an appropriate thing, you know, people will come on without doing a search of any of the threads that are on there, where you can see what people have already said, and somebody will come like, well, it'd be nice if you actually research the thread. And it's not a very nice way to greet people, but, you know, it is also kind of like, well, you know, part of the research means going through the different threads there. All right, hang on a second. Let me see if there are any commentos or questions about gear. Pontificorious, or pontificus, or pontiferatious, all of the above. It's so funny. All right, Bobby, I think I missed one of your comments before. I'm sure you probably know this about Mace from July 1982 Guitar Player Mag. Neil Sean Hughes, Departure album, 63 Strat in the neck position, walks like a lady. Hang on. Oh, that's why you buy ones that have had a little bit of brutality already. So if you accidentally bang it on something, walk like... So, okay, so, sorry. So I forgot to mention, not only that, let's see if I can find it. YouTube. Let's see if I can remember. Journey, Chicago. There it is, Journey Chicago 1979. All right, so here we go. All right, what is the name of that venue? Gosh darn it. It's only been 30 years. Oh, right, there's the Soldier Field, but there was a venue that they played with a bunch of the famous blues guys came out and played when I think Albert King sat in with them. Gosh darn it. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find it. But yeah, Neil was using the PV stuff a bunch because they sold it at Don Weir's Music City, which is where I got my original PV stuff back in the day. So basically, I used to blow that stuff up. My dad took me down there once he figured I was good enough and was serious enough about this thing. So he took me down there live in Chicago. Nope, 82. Hang on a second. Gosh, what was the name of that venue in Chicago? Anybody from Chicago here on the thread? Come on, hang on a second. Let me make sure I can read comments. Okay, not there. No, it was a small venue. It was a small venue. No. Uh-oh. Hang on. What do we got here? Hang on. Can I edit that? Yes, I can. Hang on. There we go. There we go. There it is. Hey, look at you. So, right. Okay, hang on. So, let's see. I will post this there, and I will post this. Oh, I can't post it there. All right. Well, I will leave the link up for a minute, but this is... All right, hang on. Oh, look at that. Hang on a second. Can you guys see? Oh, look at that goodness right there. Now, I don't want to get busted for copyright infringement, but look at that. The man, the myth, the legend, Albert King, right? I mean, come on. So there, so here is Neil with said, what I believe is the light Strat. Holy cow. All right, so Luther Allison, Jerry Portnoy, Pine Top Perkins, Albert King. Yeah, okay. And so, this is, okay. So in addition to the jam, there's a whole, all right, what's the name of this venue? It's, comments are off. In any case, you know, you can see the PV stuff hiding back there. And so, yeah, Journey, there were just a bunch of artists that were using the PV stuff then. And, of course, Neil, I errantly and most inappropriately managed not to put him in at the very top of said list. All right, hang on a second. There we go. Okay, hang on. Too many windows. There we go. All right, so... All right, we're getting close on time. First of all, hello, Jim. So the funny thing is that I've been seeing all these silverback Strats. They're like everywhere, and every time I see one, I think of you. So I'll send you the link the next time I see one. Eddie, what's going on? Oh, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. Hey, a little tone trick. I learned this from Gilby Clarke. He was talking about if you're in the bridge position, which always, in theory, sounds nice and fat, and I actually don't have the tone control rolled off. I'm just running straight into the bass. But I will back off the tone control a little bit just for a second, just for demonstration. And at the I've got enough gain on the bottom end that it's a little rumbly, almost like a Marshall rum. I'm going to turn the tone control all the way up, still in the bridge position. A lot of people know, and a lot of people don't know, that if you play to a vintage Marshall, the bottom end is not super tight, right? And this amp is similar, so it's got a little bit of a fuzzy, almost a little bit like a fuzz face into something. If I back off the tone control, it will get a little bit looser in the bottom end. But it'll also take the top and give it a little bit, make it a little sweeter. But you can achieve a similar thing by taking the tone control back up, putting in the middle pickup, and then blending in a little bit of the neck pickup. Here's the bridge on the here's the blend. Which is pretty darn cool. And here's just the neck pickup on its own. So the ability to kind of do that, and I didn't know that. I played Les Paul for years and years and years and years, and my, kind of it was mainly when I was a little bit younger, or a lot younger. My idea was if I was going to be in the middle position, everything was going to be all the way up, right? Which is different than just, again, backing off that neck pickup just a little bit. All right. So in any case, ladies and gentlemen, all right, I tell you what, normally I have a lesson at 10:40, but I actually don't this morning. So you know what? Let's hang out for a minute. I am completely out of tune, but that's okay. All right, Bobby, hold on a second. Let me just re-strike that. Come on, there we go. All right, have you been at all in contact at all with Kerry King or Kenny King? Dimebag's amp tech before Pantera might be a resource for you. He's in Houston, I believe. No. And so that's a great question. Thank you, Bobby. I really appreciate that. So one of the journeys that I have to go down, and unfortunately one of the doors that I was going to potentially be able to use as a resource has closed, which is that apparently there's, actually, let me just not even go there. But the point being is that there are some avenues that I know of to kind of be able to get inside the Pantera camp, and I'm excited to find out more from the inside out as opposed to from the outside looking in. The whole Celestian thing. Was there a blend? I heard you kind of like to use a combination, some on the top, some on the bottom. And that is to say, of the Celestian and the Jaguars. The Jaguars sound great, by the way, and the Celestians sound great. They're just a little bit different. And like I was talking about earlier before with the Ampeg cabinets, the Altecs were actually an upgrade, but most guitar players didn't like the way the Altecs sounded. They were a little bit harsh on the top end. So thank you. Hang on, I'm going to bring that comment. Actually, Kenny or Kerry King, but I got a funny Kerry King story. So hold on a second. So let me just search Dimebag. Where's my Dimebag thread? Why am I not seeing my Dimebag thread? That's weird. There we go, Dime. All right. Kenny / Kerry King Tech. Awesome. That's great. Thank you for that. And yeah, I'm a mad notes taker. It enables me to kind of keep sanity around all of this stuff that's kind of floating through stuff. Eric Vaughn, great to see you. Thank you. There we go. Journey and special guests play the blues in Chicago. What's the name of that venue? In any case, it was kind of the small venue. Great to see you, Eric. Always a pleasure, my friend. Hey. Okay. All right. Well, it looks like we're on top of comments. But there was I think, Bobby, you had a question a little bit earlier that I missed coming back to. Right. Okay. I think I answered about the speakers. Not 100% positive. Maybe I did catch all of this. Okay. Well, first of all, okay. So I've gone through the research. So as a recap, for anybody just coming in here, what we were talking about is kind of the motivations and, hold on a second. Wait a second. I thought you were going to be out of town this week. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the student that I thought was out of town is in town. If you wanted to know what the look of embarrassment looks like, there it is. So that's really strange. I thought he had a thing that he was doing with military people to, all right, one sec. He probably tuned is like, he's streaming. All right, much love. This was a lot of fun. And I hope for some of you or any or all of you, there will have been some tidbit of what we went over. And I appreciate all the feedback and the great vibes, and all the people hanging out. This is one of the high points of many high points of every week that I have. Things are good, which I appreciate. But this show is always a great opportunity to connect with great folks. So thank you for that. Warms the heart. Till I see you next week, make it a great one. Tom, thank you. Appreciate it. Everybody have a great